When my stepdaughter called me Mom for the first time, I thought my heart might burst. I didn't know that word would be the beginning of a secret that would ruin everything I believed about my family. The morning it happened, sunlight was spilling through our kitchen window, catching the tiny dust motes that always danced above the counter when I cooked breakfast. Pancakes were sizzling on the griddle, the smell of butter and sugar mixing with the faint scent of coffee that still lingered in the air. Lila, 8 years old, all tangled curls and sleepy eyes, sat at the table, legs swinging beneath her chair. She looked up at me, mouth sticky with syrup, and said, almost absent-mindedly, "Thanks, Mom." I froze. It wasn't the first time she'd said thank you, but Mom, that word had never come from her before. For a second, the sound of it seemed to echo off the kitchen tiles. I felt something inside me loosen, joy, surprise, disbelief, all tumbling together. When I turned around, she was already digging into another pancake, oblivious to what she'd done. "Sweetheart," I said softly, trying to keep my voice even, "what did you just call me?" She looked up, cheeks puffed, smiled. "Mom," she said again. "You are, aren't you?" I laughed, but my hands trembled a little as I poured her more juice. "I guess, in some ways," I whispered. Across the table, her father, my husband, Daniel, smiled, that quiet half-smile he always gave when he was proud of something he didn't want to talk about. "She's finally warming up to you," he said. "Took long enough." He reached out, brushing his hand over mine. Warm. Familiar. Safe. For that moment, I thought I had everything. I had been married to Daniel for just over a year. We'd met at a community fundraiser after I moved to Maple Ridge, a small town where everyone knew each other's stories, at least they thought they did. Daniel was a widower, quiet, kind, the kind of man who fixed leaky faucets before you noticed they were dripping. When he first told me about his late wife, Clara, his voice carried that hollow tone people use when grief has settled in their bones. "She disappeared," he said once. "One morning she just didn't come home. No note, no trace. Police said she probably left." "I don't think so." I didn't press. The ache in his eyes made me stop asking. By the time we married, Lila had just turned 7. She was polite, shy, and fiercely loyal to her father. The first few months were awkward. I was the stranger trying to find a place in their already formed world. Our home was a modest 2-story with white shutters and a porch that creaked whenever someone stepped on it. Mornings started with coffee and cartoons. Evenings ended with bedtime stories. I tried to give Lila normalcy, braiding her hair for school, leaving little notes in her lunchbox. Slowly, she began to laugh more, talk more. She'd tell me about her classmates, her teacher, Mrs. Harlow, and the little boy named Ben who shared his crayons. Daniel worked long hours as a contractor, often coming home late, smelling faintly of sawdust and sweat. I didn't mind. I filled the time with house projects, cooking experiments, and writing in the journal I'd kept since college. Every night before bed, I'd check on Lila. She always slept curled on her side, clutching a faded stuffed rabbit Daniel said had been her mother's gift. I remember thinking, if Clara could see her now, she'd be proud. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Or at least I thought it was. It started with a smell. One evening, I walked into the laundry room and caught a faint scent of perfume, floral, sharp, expensive. It wasn't mine. It wasn't the lavender detergent either. This was different. When I asked Daniel about it, he shrugged. Probably from one of the job sites. You know how some of the clients are. I wanted to believe him. So I did. Then came the phone calls. Late at night, the landline ringing once, twice, then silence. Daniel said it was telemarketers. Lila would wake up sometimes, padding into our room with her blanket, whispering, "Daddy, the phone keeps making noise." He'd sigh, pull her close, and say, "Go back to bed, sweet pea. It's nothing." But the unease began to grow like a shadow behind every quiet moment. One Sunday afternoon, while cleaning Lila's closet, I found a shoebox tucked behind old art supplies. Inside were photos, Daniel, Lila, and a woman with soft brown hair and a scar just above her left eyebrow. Clara. I recognized her from the framed picture in Daniel's office. But these were different, some newer, less faded. One photo showed her standing beside a blue car with a date written on the back in black ink, March 3rd, 2 years ago. I froze. Clara had vanished 3 years ago, Daniel said. But this picture was only 2 years old. When I showed it to him that night, his reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of shock, his expression tightened. "Where did you find that?" he asked quietly. "In Lila's closet." "Why does it look recent?" He took the photo from me, slipped it into his wallet, and said, "Old date stamp. She was gone long before that. Don't worry about it." His tone was final. I didn't argue, but my chest ached with the kind of curiosity that keeps you awake long after the lights go out. That night, I dreamt of Clara's face, half shadowed, half smiling, as if she was trying to tell me something. The next morning, Lila was unusually quiet at breakfast. "Did you sleep well, sweetheart?" I asked. She nodded, eyes downcast. Then, in a whisper so small I almost missed it, she said, "Mom used to make pancakes on Sundays too." I smiled softly. "You mean your real mom?" She looked up. "You're my real mom now," she said. The sweetness of it made me tear up, until she added, almost as an afterthought, "Daddy said we shouldn't talk about my first mom anymore." Something cold passed through me then, sharper than the morning air sneaking in from the cracked window. I reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Did he tell you why?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "He just said she went away because she did something bad." I smiled, pretending calm. But inside, my heart started to thud against my ribs. What could a mother possibly do so wrong that her own child wasn't allowed to speak her name? That question wouldn't let me go. I started noticing things I'd ignored before, the way Daniel locked his office drawer, how he flinched whenever a certain news alert came on TV, how Lila's eyes sometimes went wide when I mentioned her mother. It was like living in a house built over a secret, hearing the creaks of something buried deep beneath. And I was about to dig it up. The next few days, I tried to shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It's strange how you can love someone and still sense there's a version of them you've never met. Daniel was still kind, still helpful. He kissed me goodbye in the mornings, texted to ask if I needed anything from the store, and tucked Lila in at night with a story and a kiss on the forehead. But there were cracks forming, small, quiet ones. He started keeping his phone face down. He'd step outside to take calls, saying they were from clients. And when I asked about Clara, just once more, his voice grew firm. "I told you, she's gone, Marissa," he said, using that tone men use when they want a subject buried. "Please let the past stay buried." So I did. Or I tried to. But the past doesn't like to stay buried when a child keeps digging it up. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Lila came home from school holding a folded piece of paper. "Mrs. Harlow said I could draw my family tree," she said proudly. "Look." I smiled, ready to praise her for the colorful lines and hearts, until I saw the bottom branch. There, beneath her stick figure labeled Lila, were 2 others. Mom, that was me, and under it Clara, the secret one. My stomach dropped. "The secret one?" I asked carefully. "Sweetheart, what do you mean?" She looked at me like it was obvious. "Daddy said she had to go away because she saw something she wasn't supposed to. That's why we can't tell anyone she used to be my mom." Her voice was calm, innocent, like she was repeating a bedtime story. Something in my body went cold. I tried to smile, but it felt like my face was made of glass. "Oh, honey, maybe Daddy meant something else," I said, tucking the paper into her backpack before she could see my hands trembling. That night, when Daniel came home, I couldn't bring myself to ask him about it. He was tired, rubbing his temples, muttering about invoices and clients. But when he went upstairs to shower, I slipped into his office. Daniel's office was always neat, too neat, almost sterile. The smell of cedar polish hung in the air, and his desk was perfectly organized. Blueprints, contracts, a small framed photo of Lila. And that locked drawer. I hesitated. I didn't have the key, but Daniel wasn't the only one who liked order. I knew where he kept his spare keys, in a little ceramic bowl shaped like a boat on the shelf. He thought it was clever hiding them in plain sight. I found the one that fit on the 3rd try. Inside the drawer, there were papers, property deeds, bank receipts, envelopes. But what caught my eye was a thick manila folder labeled in black ink, C. Holloway, closed. Clara's maiden name. My breath hitched. Inside were police reports, statements, a missing person flyer. I scanned the first few lines. Subject: Clara Holloway Daniels. Reported missing, March 6th. Husband: Daniel Holloway. Last seen leaving Maple Ridge Elementary parking lot. Witnesses: none. But the file didn't stop there. The next few pages were copies of emails. From Clara. Dated weeks after she'd supposedly disappeared. Each one was short, desperate. Dan, please. Stop lying. I'm not going to the police if you just tell the truth. You can't keep her from me forever. If you don't meet me, I'll tell Marissa everything. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. Marissa. My name. The last email was dated just 3 weeks before Daniel and I met. I dropped the papers as if they burned. When I heard the shower stop upstairs, I shoved everything back, locked the drawer, and ran to the kitchen to steady my breathing. Daniel came down moments later, towel around his neck, smiling. Hey, he said softly. You look pale. You okay? I forced a smile. Just tired. Long day. He kissed my forehead. Go to bed early. I'll finish up downstairs. And as I climbed the stairs, I caught sight of his reflection in the hallway mirror, smiling, but his eyes not quite matching. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every car passing outside felt like something watching. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, replaying every conversation, every detail of the past year. The way Daniel had rushed our wedding, saying Lila needed stability. The way he avoided talking about the past. By morning, one truth had rooted itself in me. Clara hadn't simply disappeared. Something or someone had made her disappear. I knew I had to find out more, but quietly, carefully. Daniel wasn't stupid. He could sense shifts in tone, changes in rhythm. So I started small. While he was at work, I called the Maple Ridge Police Department pretending to be Clara's cousin. My voice shook so much I had to clear my throat twice before speaking. I'm just trying to get an update, I said. It's been years, and her daughter still asks about her. The woman on the other end sighed. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that case was closed. The husband requested it be marked inactive after a body was presumed lost near the river. No remains were found. My grip tightened on the phone. Presumed? Based on what? Personal belongings found near the Maple River Bridge, her phone, her handbag, a car key. Mr. Holloway confirmed they were hers. My knees felt weak. Was there any sign of foul play? A pause. Not enough evidence to pursue. She lowered her voice. You're not the first one to ask lately. Another woman called a few months ago. Said she didn't believe the story either. I whispered, do you know her name? Sorry, privacy regulations. But she sounded close to the family. Close to the family. I hung up, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Then it hit me. Lila's old shoebox. There were more photos inside I hadn't gone through. I opened it again. At the bottom, tucked behind the stack of pictures, was a small folded note in handwriting that looked rushed but familiar from the police file. If anything happens to me, don't let him near Lila. No signature. No date. Just that one line. That evening, when Daniel came home, I couldn't look at him the same way. Every gesture, his hand on my shoulder, his voice asking about dinner, felt rehearsed. I realized then, the man standing in my kitchen, pouring wine, smiling at his daughter, was a stranger wearing the face of my husband. And I had to find out what he'd done to the woman who once stood where I now did. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. I couldn't stay in that bed next to him any longer, not until I knew what he was hiding. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the hallway clock. I slipped on my coat, grabbed the car keys, and drove toward Maple River, the same river mentioned in the police report. The air was cold enough to bite. Mist curled above the water, turning everything into a gray blur. A faded wooden sign marked the bridge, Maple Ridge Crossing, 3 miles. When I reached the spot, I parked by the shoulder. The wooden railing was cracked, some planks replaced with new ones that didn't match the rest. And there, carved faintly into the old wood, were the initials, C+D. I ran my fingers across them, feeling a chill travel down my spine. Clara and Daniel. I closed my eyes and tried to picture her standing here, maybe arguing, maybe crying. Did she fall? Jump? Or was she pushed? When I turned to leave, I noticed something half buried in the dirt near the base of a tree. It was small, glinting faintly in the light. I dug it out carefully. A silver charm bracelet. The clasp was broken, the metal dull from age. One of the charms was a tiny letter L. L for Lila. My breath caught. I stared at it for what felt like hours before tucking it into my coat pocket. When I got home, Daniel was already in the kitchen, making coffee. Early morning walk, he asked casually. My heart hammered, but I forced a smile. Couldn't sleep. He nodded. You've been restless lately. Everything okay? I lied, easily, for the first time. Just tired. Maybe a cold coming on. He handed me a mug, his hand brushing mine. Try to rest, okay? I murmured something, anything, and turned away before he could read my face. That's when I realized something chilling. I'd started pretending around my husband. Later that night, after he fell asleep, I took out my laptop. If the police report said case closed, maybe there was still something online, an article, a record, anything. It didn't take long to find it. A small-town newspaper archive. Local mother presumed dead. Maple River investigation ends. The photo was grainy, but I recognized Clara immediately. I scrolled further down the article. There was a quote from Daniel. My wife was struggling with anxiety and often disappeared for hours. I'm heartbroken, but I accept the conclusion. My priority now is our daughter. Anxiety. That was new. Daniel had never mentioned that. Then another sentence stood out. A witness claimed to have seen Clara arguing with a man near the bridge that evening. No name, no follow-up. The article ended abruptly, like the truth had been cut off mid-sentence. I closed the laptop slowly. It was no longer a question of if Daniel was lying. It was why. The next morning, Lila woke up crying. She'd had a nightmare, she said. Something about water and Mom calling her name. I sat on her bed, brushing her hair back. It's okay, sweetheart. It was just a dream. But she shook her head fiercely. No, it wasn't. I heard her voice. She said, don't believe him. Her tiny hands clutched my sleeve. She sounded scared. I held her close, pretending not to tremble. That day, I kept glancing at Daniel like he was someone I might one day have to defend myself against. If I was going to find the truth, I needed help, but not from the police. Not yet. I didn't trust anyone until I had proof. There was one person I thought of, Abigail, Clara's old friend. I'd seen her name. Mentioned once in a letter Daniel had kept Abigail calling again. Won't stop asking questions. After a quick search on Facebook, I found her profile. I hesitated before messaging. Hi Abigail, you don't know me. I'm Marissa, Daniel's wife. I need to ask you something about Clara. She replied almost instantly. I was wondering when you'd reach out. We met the next day at a small cafe outside town. Abigail was older than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with tired eyes, but a sharpness that hadn't dulled with time. When she saw me, she gave a sad smile. You look like someone who's just realized she doesn't know the man she married. I didn't deny it. Please, I said, I just need the truth. She sipped her coffee before speaking. Clara was scared before she disappeared. She told me Daniel wasn't the man she thought he was. Said he was controlling, paranoid. She wanted to leave, but was afraid of what he'd do if she took Lila. I swallowed hard. Did she ever mention the bridge? Abigail nodded slowly. Yes. She said he asked her to meet him there that night, said he wanted to talk things out. She never came home after that. I gripped my cup, feeling the world tilt. Why didn't you go to the police? I did, she said, eyes flashing. But they said there wasn't enough evidence. He was too calm, too convincing. He even cried in front of them. She paused, lowering her voice. But I never believed she ran away. Clara loved Lila too much. Then she slid a small envelope across the table. I kept this. Found it in my mailbox 2 days after she vanished. Inside was a photo. Clara and Lila at the park smiling. On the back, in Clara's handwriting, if something happens to me, Daniel did it. Don't let him near our daughter. The same words as the note I'd found in the shoebox. By the time I drove home, my mind was spinning. If what Abigail said was true, Daniel hadn't just lied, he'd erased someone. When I pulled into the driveway, Daniel was outside, talking to someone by his truck. I couldn't see their face, just the shadow of a tall man in a baseball cap. They shook hands, and the man left quickly. Daniel smiled when he saw me. "You're home early." "Just errands," I said, forcing calm. But his eyes flicked to the passenger seat. "You met someone?" I hesitated. "Just a friend." His jaw tightened slightly, only for a moment, but I saw it. He walked over, leaned through the window, and brushed my cheek with his thumb. "You know I don't like secrets, Marissa." His voice was soft, too soft. That night, I locked my bedroom door for the first time. Lying awake, I thought about Clara's bracelet in my coat pocket. The note. The photo. They weren't enough for the police, maybe. But they were enough for me. Enough to know I was living with a man capable of anything. And I wasn't going to wait for him to decide what happened next. The next morning, I watched Daniel leave for work. His truck disappeared down the road, gravel crunching beneath the tires, and for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. I had only a few hours to act before he returned. I packed Lila's school lunch, kissed her forehead, and said I might be late picking her up. She didn't ask why. She learned by now that my smiles sometimes didn't reach my eyes. As soon as the door shut behind her, I grabbed my phone and called Abigail. "I'm going back to the police," I said. "But I need something concrete." "Meet me at the Maple Ridge Diner," she replied. "I think I can help." When I arrived, Abigail was waiting in a corner booth, a manila envelope on the table between her hands. "I didn't want to get involved again," she said, "but you deserve to know what I found years ago." She slid the envelope toward me. Inside were photocopies, Clara's phone records, text screenshots, and one email I hadn't seen before. It was dated the night before she vanished. To Abigail, subject, "He's scaring me. Dan's been checking my phone, following me. He says I'm hiding something. I'm meeting him tomorrow by the bridge to end things. If anything happens, please take care of Lila." My throat went dry. "How did you get this?" Abigail shrugged faintly. She forwarded it to me that night. I printed it before the account was deleted. I showed it to the police, but Daniel said she was paranoid, unstable. Unstable. The word echoed like poison. I looked down at the date. The timestamp was 9:17 p.m. Daniel had always said she vanished that night after he went to bed. But this message proved he knew she was alive that evening. Abigail leaned closer. "Whatever you do, don't confront him alone. He's clever, too charming when he wants to be. People believe him." I nodded, my pulse quickening. "I won't. But I can't live like this anymore. Not with Lila in that house." Abigail placed a hand over mine. "Then you need to leave quietly. Tonight." Back home, I couldn't focus. I folded laundry that didn't need folding, scrubbed countertops that were already clean. Every creak of the floorboards made me flinch. By the time Lila returned from school, I had made my decision. After dinner, once she was asleep, I packed a small bag, just essentials. Birth certificates, cash, a few clothes. I tucked Clara's bracelet into my pocket and hid the rest of the evidence beneath the passenger seat of my car. I would take Lila to my sister's house in the next town. Then, once we were safe, I'd contact the police with everything. But life has a way of shifting the moment you think you've taken control. At 10:15 p.m., I heard the truck in the driveway. Too early. Daniel was home. I shoved the bag under the bed and tried to compose myself. He walked in, smelling of cold air and gasoline, a small cut on his hand. "Long day," he muttered. "Truck's acting up." He poured himself a drink and sat on the couch, eyes fixed on me. "You've been quiet lately." "Just tired." He smiled faintly. "You're always tired lately." I looked down at my hands, not trusting my face. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "You ever wonder why Clara really left?" My heart skipped. "You told me she disappeared." He nodded slowly, swirling his drink. That's one way to put it. Something in his tone made my skin crawl. He set the glass down, leaned forward. "You think you know someone, and then you find out they're lying." She wasn't who she said she was, Marissa. She had secrets. Dangerous ones. What kind of secrets? I asked, my voice barely audible. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled, a slow, practiced smile. The kind that destroy families. Then he stood up, kissed my forehead, and said, "Get some rest." As he walked upstairs, I realized I was shaking. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, listening to his footsteps, his breathing, the floor creaking above me. At 2 a.m., I made my move. I slipped into Lila's room, lifted her gently into my arms, and whispered, "We're going on a little trip, sweetheart." She mumbled, half asleep, "Where's Daddy?" "Shoo, it's okay. Just a drive." I carried her to the car, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. As I started the engine, I glanced at the house one last time. Every window was dark except one, Daniel's office. The light flickered once, then went out. I pressed my foot on the gas. We drove through the sleeping town, streetlights blurring past. Lila drifted back to sleep in the back seat, her small hand clutching the corner of her blanket. When I reached my sister's driveway, I parked and finally allowed myself to breathe. But before I could step out, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "You forgot something in the house. Don't make this worse." My hands froze over the screen. How could he possibly know? Then I saw it, the tiny red light on the dashboard. A tracker. He'd planted a tracker under the car. I turned off the ignition and sat there, trembling, the night closing in around me. The next morning, I called Abigail again. "He's tracking me," I whispered. "Stay put," she said. "I know someone, a retired detective. He worked Clara's case before it was closed. He might still have the original files." Within hours, I was sitting in an old kitchen filled with coffee steam and newspaper clippings. The detective, Mr. Lawson, was gray-haired, sharp-eyed, and clearly frustrated that the case had died in his absence. "I always thought there was more to it," he said, flipping through the folder. But the husband was persuasive. Calm, cooperative. Too cooperative. He handed me a photo I hadn't seen before, from the original investigation. A blurry image, taken by a passing driver the night Clara disappeared. Two figures standing near the bridge. One tall, one smaller, wearing a light coat. Even blurred, the man's posture was unmistakable. "Daniel." My hands shook as I whispered, "That's him." Lawson nodded grimly. "And that coat?" "The police found one just like it burned behind the house weeks later. He said it was old work gear. We couldn't prove otherwise." He leaned back, eyes heavy. "You need to be careful. If he thinks you know something, you're in danger." I pressed my hands together to stop them trembling. "I think he already knows." That night, as I lay on my sister's couch with Lila asleep beside me, I could still see Daniel's face in my mind. The smile that once felt like safety now looked like something hollow rehearsed. And I realized that I wasn't just uncovering what happened to Clara. I was living in the same story she never got to finish. The next morning, the detective called me again. His tone was careful, like he was choosing every word. "Marissa," he said, "I reopened Clara's file unofficially. There's something you need to see." I met him at his small office near the edge of town. He slid a single piece of paper across the desk, a bank statement dated 2 weeks before Clara's disappearance. She tried to withdraw all her savings, Lawson explained. But the transaction was stopped. The request was flagged because the account was under joint ownership. I scanned the page, Daniel's signature beside hers, initials scrawled over the canceled stamp. "She was trying to leave him," I whispered. Lawson nodded. "And he didn't let her." My hands clenched around the page until it crinkled. "I'm forwarding all this to my contact at the precinct," he said. "But understand something, if he senses we're digging again, he'll act fast. You need to stay somewhere safe." I nodded. "We're already hiding at my sister's." He gave me a long look. "Then don't go back there. He knows where that is." The air in the room grew heavy. I realized then how far this had gone beyond fear. This was survival. That evening, while Lila colored on the living room floor, I tried to appear calm. But she noticed anyway. Kids always do. "Are we going home soon?" she asked quietly. I paused. "Not yet, sweetheart. We're just visiting Aunt Jenna for a while." She frowned, crayon poised midair. Daddy's mad, isn't he? My chest tightened. Why do you say that? He called me this morning on my tablet. I froze. He what? She looked confused. He said he misses me. He asked if you were okay. I forced a smile that felt like glass cracking. What did you tell him? I said you were tired, but you said we're fine. I hugged her tight, burying my face in her hair. That's good, baby. You did good. Inside, though, my thoughts raced. How had he reached her tablet? I'd turned off everything, disconnected the Wi-Fi. Unless he'd installed something before we left. That night, after she fell asleep, I opened the device. A hidden app was running in the background, location sharing. He'd been tracking us the entire time. My pulse thundered as I powered it off and tossed it into a drawer. I called Lawson immediately. He's still tracking us. I don't know how, but he found Lila's tablet. Stay calm, he said. I'll handle it. Do not leave the house. And keep the doors locked. But calm was impossible. Every sound outside, a car, a branch against the window, made my heart lurch. Around midnight, a car engine idled down the street. Headlights flashed through the blinds, slicing across the room. I crept to the window and peeked out. Daniel's truck. I grabbed my phone and whispered, "He's here." Lawson's voice came steady on the other end. "Don't move. I'm on my way." But Daniel was faster. He didn't knock. He just stood by the porch, staring at the front door, as if he knew I was watching. Then, calmly, he called out Marissa. "You can't keep her from me." His voice was low, almost tender, which made it worse. "Come outside. Let's talk." I backed away from the window, heart racing. "She's asleep," I managed to say. "I know," he said softly. "She talks in her sleep, you know that? Always has. Keeps saying mom." He smiled, that practiced, terrifying smile. Funny how history repeats itself, isn't it? Before I could answer, red and blue lights flickered down the street. Lawson's car. Daniel turned, his face hardening for the first time. Then, without a word, he walked back to his truck and drove off. The detective burst through the door seconds later. "Are you okay?" I nodded, shaking, barely breathing. He looked out the window. "He's gone for now. But he's not finished. Men like him never think they're finished." The next morning, an officer arrived to take my statement, this time officially. The photos, the emails, the bracelet, the note, I handed it all over. Within days, the case was reopened. The town buzzed with whispers. Daniel Holloway, the man everyone trusted to fix their roofs and repair their fences, was now the center of a missing person investigation. The day the news broke, I was sitting in the kitchen at Jenna's house, holding a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The TV in the background played the report, local contractor under investigation for potential involvement in wife's disappearance. New evidence suggests foul play. They showed his photo, smiling, confident, standing in front of his truck. Then they showed mine, blurred beside his. His current wife and stepdaughter are under protective watch. The words hit me like a wave. Protective watch. I never thought I'd need protection from my own husband. Lila came into the room just as his picture appeared on screen. "Daddy's on TV," she said. "Why are they saying bad things about him?" I swallowed hard. "Sometimes adults make mistakes, sweetheart. Big ones." Her eyes searched mine. "Did he hurt mommy?" I couldn't lie anymore. I knelt down, taking her tiny hands. "I don't know for sure, but I think he did." She blinked and then whispered something I'll never forget. "I think she tried to tell me." A week later, they found something near the river, a buried container behind the tree line, filled with Clara's personal items, jewelry, an old wallet, her driver's license. Inside the wallet was a photo, Clara, Daniel, and baby Lila. The same scar above her eyebrow. The same faint smile I'd seen in every picture. That was enough for the police to arrest Daniel. I wasn't there when they took him in, but I heard about it from Lawson. He said Daniel didn't resist, didn't argue. He just said one thing, Lawson told me. She should have stayed quiet. The trial began 3 months later. The courtroom was packed with townspeople who couldn't believe the man they'd known for years could do something so dark. I testified, voice trembling, palms slick with sweat. Abigail testified, too. So did Lawson. When the prosecutor held up Clara's bracelet, the same one I'd found near the river, I had to look away. Daniel never looked at me once during the trial. But when the verdict was read guilty of manslaughter and obstruction of justice, his eyes finally found mine. And for a split second, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Not anger. Not guilt. Relief. As if the truth had finally been dragged out of him, and he no longer had to pretend. That night, when we got home, Lila asked if she could sleep beside me. Of course, I said. She curled up close, whispering, "Do you think Mommy knows?" I looked at the ceiling, tears slipping down my face. "Yes, baby. I think she knows." She smiled softly, already drifting to sleep. And for the first time in months, the house felt quiet, not from fear, but from peace. 6 months after the trial, the house in Maple Ridge still stood at the end of that quiet street, white shutters, creaking porch, the smell of cedar still clinging to the walls. But it wasn't our home anymore. I drove past it once, not to go inside, just to see it. Lila was in the back seat, humming softly to the tune of her favorite song, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. She didn't look up when we passed the house. Maybe she didn't recognize it anymore. Maybe she chose not to. The windows were dark, the garden overgrown. But for a moment, I thought I saw movement, a curtain fluttering in the upstairs window. A trick of the light, maybe. Or memory. I parked for just a second, long enough to whisper, "You can rest now, Clara. She's safe." And then I drove away. The months that followed felt like slow recovery after a long illness. Healing wasn't quick. It never is. I started seeing a therapist. Talking, for the first time, about the guilt I carried, guilt for not seeing the truth sooner, for bringing Lila into the middle of it. She told me something that stuck. Survivors always blame themselves, Marissa. But you did what many can't, you listened to the silence between words. I thought about that often. The silence between words, how Daniel's calmness had always masked what he didn't say. Lila and I moved into a small apartment near the ocean. It wasn't fancy, 2 bedrooms, chipped white paint, salt-streaked windows. But it was ours. Every morning, we'd walk down to the beach before school. She'd collect seashells, tiny ones, and press them into my palm like treasures. "Mom," she said one day, so naturally it almost startled me. I looked at her, heart-catching. "What, sweetheart?" She smiled. "I mean, it's okay if I call you that, right?" I knelt down beside her, sand sticking to my jeans. "You can call me whatever feels right, Lila." She thought for a moment, serious and small, then nodded. "You feel like Mom. Not like the first one or the second one. Just you." I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of salt and sun. "Then I'll be your just me Mom." And for the first time, the word didn't break me. It healed me. Abigail visited often. We'd sit on the porch with tea and talk about Clara, about her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she used to paint late into the night. "Clara would have liked you," Abigail said once. "You're both too brave for your own good." I smiled faintly. "Bravery isn't what it feels like from the inside." She nodded. "No, from the inside, it feels like survival." One afternoon, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from Lawson. "Case officially closed. The court acknowledged the role your testimony played in bringing truth to light. There's peace now, not perfect, but earned. Keep living, Marissa. Don't let this story be the only one you tell." I held the letter for a long time. Peace, not perfect, but earned. That night, I took Lila to the pier. The sky was bruised pink and orange, the air thick with salt and laughter from the boardwalk. She leaned over the railing, tossing a seashell into the waves. "What was that for?" I asked. "For Mommy," she said. "So she can find us again someday." The simplicity of it broke me open, not in pain, but in release. I placed my own shell beside hers, let it slip through my fingers. The tide carried them both away. Sometimes I still dream about Clara. Not the haunting kind anymore, not fear or guilt. Just moments. In one dream. She's standing by the river, not the bridge, but the shoreline, barefoot, holding Lila's hand. She looks at me and smiles, not sad, not angry, just peaceful. Then she says something I can never quite hear before fading into the fog. I used to wake up crying. Now, I just whisper, I heard you. Life, I've learned, doesn't snap back after tragedy. It bends, reshapes, grows around the cracks. You learn to laugh again, to cook dinner without the weight in your chest, to believe that not everything that begins in pain must end there too. Lila started therapy as well. She drew pictures of the river for months, blue and silver lines looping across the page. But one day, she brought me a new drawing. A house on a hill, sunlight pouring through the windows, two figures holding hands. "This one's us," she said proudly. "And the light means we're okay now." I framed it. It hangs above our table, a reminder that even after the darkest storms, light still finds its way back through. The last time I saw Daniel was in court during his appeal hearing. He looked older, smaller somehow, his hair grayer, his eyes dull. He didn't speak to me, didn't look at Lila. But as I was leaving, a guard handed me a sealed envelope. Daniel had asked it be given to me privately. I hesitated for weeks before opening it. When I finally did, there was no confession, just one sentence in his familiar, neat handwriting: she wasn't supposed to fall. For a moment, I felt the old anger rise, the fury, the grief. But it faded quickly. Whatever truth was left in that line, it no longer had power over me. I burned the letter. Some stories, I realized, don't need to end with answers. They end with freedom. Now, when I look at Lila running along the shoreline, laughter echoing through the wind, I don't see a girl haunted by what was lost. I see someone who survived it. And I see the same thing in the mirror. That night, as we walked home, the streetlights flickering above us, Lila slipped her hand into mine and said softly, "You know what, Mom? I think she's happy now." I smiled. "Who?" She looked up at the stars. "Both of you. It's been 2 years now." Sometimes, I still catch myself listening for sounds that aren't there, a truck pulling into the driveway, a voice calling from another room. Old instincts die hard. But the fear that used to live in my bones has faded into something quieter. Not peace, exactly, but acceptance. Lila and I have built a life out of the ruins of another. She's 10 now. Bolder. Freer. She laughs easily, makes friends quickly, and still keeps a small seashell in her backpack, the one she said belonged to her mother. Last week, she stood on stage at her school play and waved at me from the crowd. "Hi, Mom," she said into the microphone before her teacher could even start the introductions. The audience laughed, but I couldn't. My throat tightened with something warm and proud and heartbreaking all at once. Because in that moment, I realized love doesn't erase pain. It grows from it. It becomes the quiet promise that no one will ever hurt her the way we were hurt. I've kept Clara's bracelet on my nightstand ever since the day I found it. Sometimes I trace the letter L with my thumb before bed. Not as a reminder of tragedy, but as a symbol of connection between the woman who came before me and the child we both loved enough to protect. I used to hate her absence. Now I understand it differently. She didn't leave her daughter behind. She left her daughter with me. And that realization is what finally let me forgive her. And, eventually, forgive myself. There's a calmness that comes when truth finally finds its place in the world. It doesn't roar or demand attention. It just settles, like dust after a long storm, revealing what's still standing underneath. For me, that's Lila. For her, it's the kind of love that doesn't disappear, no matter how many secrets surround it. Some nights, when the house is quiet and the ocean hums outside our window, I think about everything that happened, the lies, the fear, the betrayal. And yet, I also think about the small moments that came after, Lila's first laugh in our new home. The smell of sea salt and pancakes. The way she holds my hand without needing to be told. Those are the things that matter now. The rest, the darkness, no longer belongs to us. I tell this story not because I want pity, but because I want understanding. There are so many people living in the shadows of what they think they know about the ones they love. So many signs ignored because we want to believe the best. But sometimes, the truth hides behind gentleness, behind quiet smiles and careful words. If you ever feel that something isn't right, listen. Listen to the silence. Listen to your gut. It's not paranoia. It's your instinct trying to keep you alive. I don't know what happens to souls like Clara's, the ones who leave this world unfinished, unheard. But I hope she knows that her daughter is safe, that her voice wasn't lost forever, that the story she began, I finished. And maybe that's the strange grace of it all. We carry each other forward, even through the pain, even through the lies, even through the things that were never meant to happen. Because love, the real kind, doesn't stop when the truth hurts. It just changes shape and keeps going. If you've ever carried a secret that changed your life, or had to rebuild after someone else's choices shattered your world, I hope my story reminds you that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means surviving, and then choosing to live anyway. Would you have done what I did? Would you have looked for the truth, even if it meant losing everything you loved? Tell me in the comments. And if my story touched you, share it so maybe someone out there finds the strength to listen to their own silence too. Thank you for hearing mine.